Hi, sweethearts. It's Amber. Today's Wednesday, and our topic is the meaning in the T and behind the T. So, we're talking about whether we feel like the T should be included in the LGBT community or not, and and how our guy feels about being lumped in with the community, for lack of a better way to say it. So, I think when we look historically at the inclusion of the trans community within the LGBT piece, it's kind of a dicey past. If you look up some of the history of the HRC, the HRC definitely has a history of being pretty anti-trans a lot of times. And I think for many people, the T piece is seen as something that can be kind of separate. Um, the L, G, and B pieces are really about someone's sexual orientation, either who they want to be in a relationship with or who they want to have sex with, depending on how people want to see it. And the T piece is really about who you are. So in that respect, it's not at all connected. But I think if you see the LGBT community as sort of everything around sexuality and gender that are outside of the majority, then it seems to fit really well. Especially when you think about many of the people who are L, G, or B who don't identify as trans don't always fit well in terms of their gender expression. If you look at stereotypically, gay men tend to have a slightly more feminine sort of way of acting. Lesbians tend to have a more masculine way of acting, and so I think and with the community having a history of drag performance, that in that way the T piece really does fit well, because it is talking about the LGBT community really being sexuality and gender minorities. So I think in that piece it does fit. In terms of Stefan's sort of feeling about being a part of that community or being kind of lumped into it, we were talking a little bit about it today, and I don't think he has too many huge hangups on it, except for there are a lot of people who assume that if you are a member of the LGBT community, that you understand all the pieces of the community, and that has just not been true for us. I was out in the community before I really knew anything about what it means to be trans, what that's all about, and so I think there are a lot of people who identify as L, G, or B and know absolutely nothing about the trans piece. I saw that I was on a standing committee for a professional organization that was an LGBT standing committee, and the biggest piece that people felt like they didn't know enough about was the trans piece. And we talked about, are we really making trans folks feel welcome at our meetings, in our events, when we have so many people on the standing committee who don't understand what the trans piece is about? And it prompted the group to do to have someone come and do a presentation and talk about what is transgender. So I think, so there are a lot of people, and these were folks who were very educated, knew a lot about the community, knew a lot of the history of the community, were very active in the community. But in terms of their understanding of the trans piece, it was small for some people, and for some people it was completely non-existent. There were a few folks who had some knowledge, who had a friend who was trans, or had done sort of that self-study. But I think, the folks that I was on this committee with, they're certainly not the minority in terms of folks within the community's understanding of the T piece of LGBT. So I think I say all that to say, if for people who are watching this who don't know anything about the trans community, people who are in the LGBT community especially, take the time to do some study on your own, to read a book, to watch a movie, to find a friend or make a friend who is trans and learn about it, because it's not helpful to the community as a whole if we have folks within the community who don't understand one of the major pieces of the community. So I hope everyone's having a great week. Happy Halloween, and we'll see everybody next week. Peace.